Kia ora, folks. Welcome to the fucking Woo Woo podcast. My name is Tommy. I'm a father, a therapist, a musician, a medicine person, and I do this podcast because, like a lot of you, I struggle with life, and people say that they find some of the solutions or ideas I come up with to navigate that pretty useful. First of all, I just want to say people might wonder what this little thing is that's dangling down that I keep noticing. This is a rattle. This is made by my wonderful friend Richard Two Beers, and it's a beautiful medicine rattle. I won't. I can show you a little bit, but I tell you what, that's not going to sound on camera as amazing as that rattle sounds in real life. It's got one of the most beautiful sounds, and you would have to record it with proper microphones and shit for that to sound good. But people just wonder what this funny thing is hanging down. That's what that is. I want to be transparent. One of the things I've found, one way I have found of dispensing, is dispensing the right word? Maybe. Ameliorating anxiety is to be honest about what's going on in the present moment, to get into the present moment. And it's interesting that I'm saying that because I'm actually going to talk about some lessons from Eckhart Tolle, and you guys probably know that his seminal work is called The Power of Now, and he talks about these very principles. But what I need to do is I've got some anxiety because I just watched the last episode, which was all about self-consciousness, so I could write down the show notes and the content. And I've got to say, the whole time I was watching it, I felt anxious. It was really interesting, and I don't think it was the theme of what I was talking about. I think I could pick up on the anxiety as I was feeling as I was doing that episode. For some reason, that episode, all about being self-conscious and anxious and talking about flow state and was the most anxious I've ever been, and I'm not sure why. I hope it's not a trend that continues, because again, if I'm feeling anxious and self-conscious, I'm not really going to enjoy doing these podcasts very much. But then I said that little thing at the end after the freestyle, and I just loved what I said, and so I think that episode's worth showing, and I think we can all relate to feeling anxious and self-conscious. I just hope that vibration of anxiety that I felt while watching that episode doesn't rub off on anyone else who's watching it, because I hope, my genuine hope is that these podcasts support people with growth and development, not in some grandiose way, like it's going to be, but like that it's a positive force, that it adds comfort and connection and, maybe some ideas to people's day. Not that it fucking makes them feel vicarious anxiety for me. Anyway, I just want to say, look, Eckhart Tolle, author of The Power of Now, he's a close friend of mine. And not in the physical, I mean in the spiritual. And what I mean by that is, in the physical world, I listen to his talks and stuff, and he has no idea who I am. But in the spiritual, like when I'm sleeping or astral traveling, which I can't do, we have no contact whatsoever. Basically, I just love his shit, and we're not really close at all. He he I've been listening to his talks recently. Okay, so as I've talked about in previous ones, I'm going through a breakup, and I'm where am I at? I have full acceptance that we've split up. That was a real mutual decision, and yet I am still in love with this person, and I am still experiencing, significant grief on a daily basis, and I have taken on during this time of grief, and I talked about this in another episode. Instead of just grieving this one person, I'm using this opportunity to explore what are some of my primal wounds that still linger, that still need resolution, that still need support, that still need healing. And so I'm taking on some pretty intensive personal work, which some people might refer to as shadow work, at the same time. And in order to assist me with this process, consciousness, spirit, or my subconscious, whatever, however you conceptualize, that's fine, has decided to take from me sleep for weeks and weeks and weeks, to create a real pressure cooker situation just to beat me to a fucking pulp, so that I can find inside of me this inner resource. It's basically burning away. It's like Kali, right? Like the goddess Kali. She is just stripping away of me everything that is not needed for whatever's coming next. So I watched this one clip of Eckhart Tolle, and it sucks to read shit, but I'm going to just have to read this. I wrote down after listening to it, I said, when you become the source. Okay, so here was the thing. I listened to this Eckhart Tolle episode, and I was feeling so fucking happy and so peaceful. He's so beautiful. I love that guy. And I was going into the lotto shop because here in New Zealand we have this lottery, and it had gotten up to $50 million. And I was feeling so peaceful and so content that as I was walking into the lotto shop to check if I'd won a ticket, if my ticket had won $50 million, because I thought there was a pretty good chance. Like I was definitely in there with a good chance, I thought. And I thought to myself walking, I thought, I don't even know what I'd do. Look, if I won $50 million right now, I don't even know what I'd do. I don't even know if my life would change that much. I just thought I have such a good life. I love doing my therapeutic work. I've started doing this podcast. I love my music. I love my life. Like, what would I even do with $50 million? And then I thought, are you fucking serious, Tommy? Are you saying that right now, in the middle of this breakup, in the middle of fucking, it was like 3.5 weeks into no insomnia, I'd been like going crazy with anxiety and shit some days. You are now so peaceful, you don't even care if you win this $50 million or not? I thought, that is crazy. How can that be true? And then I just thought about it, and I thought, fuck no, I can genuinely say, like, I love life. I love what's going on for me. I'm grateful for this month. Worst month of my life. Not worst, hardest month of my life. Hardest fucking month of my entire life. And one of the months I'm the most grateful for. And I went in, and presented my ticket, and I hadn't won. And I said, are you fucking kidding me? I paid $20 for this. Where's my fucking return? No, I didn't say anything. I was sweet with it. But anyway, so I wrote this thing here. It says, when you become the source of your own peace and fulfillment, you don't need $50 million, because all it would do would be to change what phenomenon you're processing in space-time. It's only a belief or a story that wants what you're processing to be different. In reality, you're processing what you need to be processing for the collective already. There's no better phenomenon for you to be working with. You'll only win $50 million, or marry the supermodel, or get the sports car, or whatever your fantasy is. You'll only have that experience if that's what spirit or consciousness needs you to be processing. Once you stop desiring or longing for that, you've already won. So what I'm saying is, what do I mean by processing phenomenon? I guess what I mean by that is we have to take a kind of higher, I don't mean higher in terms of hierarchy, like more spiritual, but just like a bird's eye view of humanity. Like, all of us are, us humans, obviously we're humans, but at the same time, we're also like data structures. We are structures containing information, navigating space-time because of energy. And we have experiences which are very personal to us. I'm splitting up with the woman I love. I'm not sleeping. I'm sick. Whatever it is. We're all processing different phenomena, but all of those different experiences, which are very meaningful and important to us, they are literally just this structure that we are of information and energy, having different experiences, and it's a belief that the experiences we want is to win $50 million, or to go out with the dream husband, or to go on the international trip, or to not have to work for a living, or whatever it is. Like, these beliefs, and I'm not saying the beliefs are wrong. I'm not saying the beliefs don't have some validity. Like, it's really probably really great to win $50 million and then not have to work so hard all the time, and not to be worried about certain things. But ostensibly, there's some truth, and I'm not articulating this anywhere near as well as Eckhart Tolle, and you can tell he's not a close personal friend, because if he was, I'd surely be able to explain what I'm trying to get to. But that all phenomena is just phenomena, and it's literally just our head which says this phenomena is better than that phenomena. Sitting on a yacht, drinking a martini next to a beautiful person who wants to have sex with you is a better phenomena than working in a factory with sore arms, and you've still got 8 hours left, and you're going to have to rush home and pick up your kids from childcare, and your kids are in childcare that you don't want them to be in because you can't afford to not work. And obviously one of those experiences 99.9% of people on the planet, if not everyone on the planet, would prefer to have the one where you're on the yacht with the martini and the beautiful person who wants to make love with you than working in the factory for fuck all money and depression and the struggle, la 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 la. But literally, both experiences are just you in a moment performing tasks. You in a moment performing tasks. And it's your mind which says these set of tasks are preferable and these set of tasks are not preferable. I'm not trying to say for a second, I'm not trying to discount anyone's pain or anyone's suffering. Some tasks are naturally, to the human animal that we are, some tasks are definitely preferable. And you have my full compassion and love if you are going through a series of tasks which are fucking hard. It's fucking hard to be going through tasks which are fucking hard. I'm just saying that all tasks involve you being in the present moment doing these tasks. And the present moment doing tasks becomes exponentially more hard when the present moment doing tasks involves a story that you're telling yourself, and the story is that this moment fucking sucks and I want another moment. Something along those lines is what I'm trying to get to. Now, I'm going to skip that thought. Okay. Well, this is a cool thing to bring in here. When you can break identification, so this is something Eckhart says all the time, when you can break identification with your mind and your resistance to what is, that's the real freedom, right? Like that's the real freedom. Or as my bro Ram Dass says to me, and I actually have met Ram Dass in spirit, but I was really high on psychedelics, and so some people might think I didn't really meet him. And if that's what you think, that's totally fine. I'm not going to be able to unbelieve that I was actually sitting with Ram Dass, but you guys will think, well, if anyone takes that much ayahuasca, they're going to meet Ram Dass. But it's not true. A lot of people take that much ayahuasca and they meet serpents and Jesus and stuff, you know. So there's all sorts of different deities and entities that might come to you when you've taken that much ayahuasca. It's not always going to be Ram, and but if you're Tommy Benefield, it's most likely to be Ram, because Ram is like my absolute he's my heavy hitter. He's like, you gotta bring in, you want the heavy, you want the 18, get Ram Dass in, you know what I mean? And he says you can either be free, you can either, he says you can either pursue getting high, and he doesn't mean getting high on drugs like ayahuasca. He just means like the highs of life, like the good things, you know, the positive things, happiness. You can either chase getting high, not chase, what does he say, pursue? I think he just says you can either get high or you can get free. And he says, and getting high is way more pleasurable than getting free. But if you choose to get high, you're always going to be running towards getting high and running away from what is not getting high. And if you choose to get free, you never have to run again. So breaking identification with your mind and with your mind's resistance to the present moment means you become free and you become liberated. And that's available through meditation. I think you're more likely to access that awareness through meditating than you are through counseling. But here's the deal, and this is a concept I came up with from a young age, because I had a friend who was really spiritual, but who would constantly offend people. And so on this vertical plane, so I came up with this idea of a vertical plane and a horizontal plane. On a vertical plane, he had mastery that none of us had. But on a horizontal plane, on the human plane, so on the spiritual plane, he was immaculate. On the human plane, he still had some lessons. And the way I would perceive it is that when you get really, when you have these profound spiritual insights and this capacity to connect with, again, for people who don't want to be too fucking woo-woo, let's not say entities, let's say information. You have access to information, whether you want to call it the collective information that exists, or maybe there's information in your DNA, in your whakapapa, maybe there is energetic information that's available through the zeitgeist, through the collective consciousness. I don't know exactly how you would frame it in that sense, but when you're on this vertical axis, you can access information and have experience of liberation and freedom from ego and freedom from the relentlessness of human thought that gives you profound insight and wisdom. But the thing is, we're still humans, right? So this horizontal axis is still there, and you might get this profound wisdom and insight here, but then as you navigate with other humans on the horizontal axis, you find that some of your conditioning, some of your wounding, some of your triggering is still there. And it's So in my opinion, just doing the meditation, just having the spiritual path without doing the work on the human level, you're susceptible or vulnerable to stumbling. And because you've had this profound insight, you might feel that you're in the presence of ineffable truth. You might, as you're navigating and perhaps making some mistakes on the horizontal, you might not realize it because you believe that you have now been ordained with this ineffable spiritual truth, and therefore not take full responsibility for some of these stumbling blocks, some of these sticky parts of being a human. So I still think that while we're working on being less identified with the stories of our mind, it's useful to do this shadow work or do this human work or find out what it is that triggers us and what are our sticky spots as a human. And that involves, counseling or, profound conversations with friends, intimate relationships, stuff like that. I think you can probably get to a place where you can see the whole picture just from the vertical axis. But when you then are navigating with other humans, if you haven't done the horizontal plane work, you might run into some trouble. That's just my personal belief. And then I got this beautiful quote came to me last night. That's a silly way of saying it. I said something out loud to myself while I was walking last night, is the truth of what happened. And I really liked it. The unconscious part of us, the unconscious part of us finds it completely unacceptable that other people behave unconsciously sometimes. I think that's brilliant. I was so happy with myself for thinking that thought, for saying that thought out loud. The unconscious part of us finds it completely unacceptable that other people behave unconsciously sometimes. And why that was such a powerful why that was such a powerful thought for me last night was I made a choice 2 days ago. I decided 2 days ago I really wanted to do something in regards to this breakup. I really wanted to do it. And I decided that what would be more powerful for me would be to practice distress tolerance. And in this instance, I'm talking about the distress of wanting to do this thing and not allowing myself to do it. Not letting myself do this thing and instead waiting for a few days. And I became, because I didn't do this thing, I didn't discharge my anxiety by asking this question of this person. And I tried to practice self-love and I tried to practice self-soothing. And I definitely was practicing giving myself the validation and the affirmation rather than trying to take it from them and their answer. And I'm proud of myself for doing that, but it did mean the anxiety was building. And unfortunately, yesterday, throughout the day, I allowed myself to practice the conversation I'm going to have, which is actually I'm going to have this afternoon. I allowed myself to practice that conversation multiple times. Each time, unwittingly and unintentionally, finding myself practicing the conversation with higher and higher levels of self-righteousness. And my story about the reason for this whole thing. Sorry to not go into details, but I have people in my lives, right? Like I don't want to be saying things about people that are exposing people or making people feel vulnerable. A lot of my people watching this, pretty much only the people watching this are going to be people who know me, and they're going to know who I'm talking about, So I just want to be incredibly respectful. Anyway, I realized that I was listening to this beautiful podcast last night from Eckhart Tolle. I mean, just a clip on YouTube, and he was talking about, when we become unconscious, we behave in these ways. And he said, if someone says to me, should I trust him? Should I trust her? I would probably say, no, you shouldn't trust a human. You could trust them to be a human, but you shouldn't trust them to be completely conscious at all times. I just thought that was so beautiful, and it just framed things in a way that really helped. Because while it's very easy for me to see things positively, and I absolutely see everything positively, there's certain experiences as you're navigating relationship and as you're navigating especially breakups that are hard, that are painful, and I'd bought into the story of being hurt. I'd really bought into the story of being hurt. Now, I'm not discounting or invalidating the fact that I was hurt and that parts of me feel hurt or because I don't want to do that for others. Like, yeah, I felt sad, I felt rejected, I felt lonely. That's all really valid. But this hurt, this story that this person hurt me, this person's actions were unacceptable. You know, like there's a certain grandiosity to that, and it's not how I normally conceive things. And what scared me at the end of the day was how negative I'd allowed myself to get. Like, I had a few panic attacks in the evening. I had built up this negative story. Um, yeah, and I was horrible to my kids. Like, there was an hour or two where I was so stuck in my story that I behaved completely unconsciously to my kids. I actually shouted at my eldest son. Um, and I apologized immediately, and we had a beautiful repair, and we had this beautiful dinner, and we were talking about different ways in which humans can become unconscious, and la la la. And he knows that I love him, and that it wasn't his fault that I shouted. It was my own fault that I was not regulating myself. I was, like, I did that repair work, but I don't ever want to fucking shout at him. I don't ever want to shout at him again. And this interesting process when I was walking last night, because I'd gotten into a state of peace, and it was very much thanks to Eckhart Tolle and his beautiful YouTube channel. Um, and interestingly, Eckhart is not he's not a huge player in my life. He's not someone who I've read or listened to for years. Though there was a period there where I was listening to him on a daily basis. He's not someone who comes into my mind all that much. But in the last week, he has been such a divine comfort. He has been so beautifully inspirational, and it's partly because I fucking love his humor. Like, I can't do his accent, otherwise I would imitate him. He is so fucking funny. Anyway, I was talking to that beast. Some of you guys will know in a previous podcast I met this aspect of self called the beast, and I was like, is it you who shouted at my son? And he goes, yeah, it was me. And I said, we can't do that. Like, I've been trying to stop doing that for years. And I have gotten a lot better, guys. Like, in terms of shouting, it's not something I do very often. The last couple of years having been the very best at my progress with that. But I still, it's incredibly embarrassing. Like, I feel shameful even admitting to a potentially public audience that I've ever shouted at my kids. Like, that is not how I want to parent. But I've said it now, and it's the truth, so I'll be honest about it. Anyway, I said to him, I don't want to shout at my kid. Like, he goes, it's my job to protect you, Tommy. I will protect you. And I said, look, I love that about you. We've got this new relationship, and I'm so grateful, and I need your protection. And there's times, like, if some asshole boss or someone or someone on the street, like, I do want, like, I'm happy. Like, I'm not a pacifist, guys. I'll just be honest. I'm not a pacifist. I'm actually happy to shout at people, but just not children, right? Not vulnerable people. Not. And when I say I'm happy to shout at people, I probably never shouted at anyone apart from my kids. That's the worst thing. They're probably the only people I've ever fucking shouted at. And possibly a couple of partners. And who also, the last thing I'd want to shout at is women who I love and who have given me their hearts and souls, and, and who I'm there to support and, assist with growth. Like, it's disgusting. I don't really believe in shouting. I'm just saying, I said to the beast, right? And it was true. If you want to shout at some motherfucker who's, like, giving you a hard time, or someone breaks into the house or whatever, like, I want you. Like, I need your force, but I don't need you with my kids. And he said, Tommy, I don't have that level of choice. He said, I don't have that level of discretion. When your amygdala is firing, and when you're in fight or flight, when you perceive a threat, I will come in and I will protect you. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, I can understand that. I was in fight or flight. I just, with the lack of sleep and stuff, I came into the house absolutely exhausted, and there were 4 or 5 different things going on all at once. And my brain was literally, with the lack of sleep, my brain was struggling. I felt, there were so many people in the house. There were visitors, and there were people who were leaving, and la 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 la. So the mother of my kids looks after the kids for the day. I do my private practice psychotherapy during the day, and then some nights of the week I take over. And during that transition of taking over, things were a bit chaotic and hectic, and there was a lot of housework to do, etc., etc. And I struggled, and I got into fight or flight in that moment, and I struggled to get out of it over the course of about an hour, which eventually led to me shouting. And I said, okay. So you're going to protect me no matter what. And I said, aha, Aha, okay, you're going to protect me no matter what. Can we make a deal? Can we make a deal that you will protect me, and that part of protecting me means protecting my children, because my children are the most important thing in the world to me, and we do not want them to have such traumatic experiences of childhood that they have a beast inside of them, and it might be too late, and it might be a necessary part of being a human. I don't know, but I just said, I said, look, I have bound my children to me. I have bound my children to me, that they are more, is there a word called sacrosanct? That they are more, well, don't have to be fancy, they are more sacred to me than anything. And so to shout at them would be to attack the most vulnerable, most beautiful part of me. Can I bind you to me, beast, in a way where you will see my children, because they're your children too, where you will see them the way you'll see me, and you will protect them first and foremost as the most vulnerable part of me, as the part of me that most needs protecting. And Beast's eyes like lit up. He was like, yeah, I think we could agree to that. That sounds fucking good. I fucking like that. Now this is all a metaphor, right? Like, I'm not saying there's genuinely different membrane inside of me that represents him and represents me, and we can make this deal, and now I'm never going to shout at my kids again. But in that moment, in the darkness, in the night sky, you know what I mean? I made a sacred vow, and he agreed to it. I don't know what's going to happen next time my amygdala fires and I'm in the company of my kids, and I perceive them as the source of this threat. Will the beast be able to do this or not? But we came up with a key phrase. I might as well share it. I don't have to be fucking mysterious about it. I said, what is it? I'm going to say, it's 2 words, beast help. Or 3 words, beast help me. Beast help. When I know I'm getting triggered, I'm going to say beast help. And we both have agreed and understand that when I say beast help, I'm not saying beast help me fucking discipline my kids. I'm saying beast help. And he said he's either going to redirect my energy with a big force. He's going to redirect my energy, or he is going to disappear. He's going to let me deal with it. That's the agreement I made. Now, whether or not, as I say, that holds true, I'll get back to you next time, which pretty much every time I hang out with my kids. I got 3 kids, one's 4, one's 8, one's 10. They have competing demands, and pretty much always at the same time they have competing demands, and they sometimes tend to express them by shouting, yelling, or antagonizing. So there's a high chance my amygdala is going to kick in, I'm going to be in fight or flight, and I'm going to have to practice this technique in the next week. That's highly likely, so I will report back. Yeah, that's probably enough, right? It's already the longest one I've ever done. And oh yeah, was I telling the story about, do I need to say what was going to happen about? The last thing I'll say is that when I was on the road doing that walk, I did a practice, because I was in such a good space because of the Eckhart Tolle consciousness, right? I did another practice talk about this question that I'm going to ask my ex. And instead of coming from a place of, she's wrong and she's hurt me, she's wrong and she's hurt me, she's so unconscious. Instead of coming from a place of she's wrong and she's hurt me, I came from a place of, here's someone who I fucking love. Here's someone who I really love, who has treated me so well for years. And I want to get some information about an experience that I've had, which is my experience and my perception of that experience. And I'm wanting to ask a question about that because it'll be really helpful, And so I practiced it, and I asked her with love and kindness. And it didn't feel anxious at all, and I didn't feel negative at all. And I was like, why did I allow myself all day long to practice this fucking question again and again, getting more and more anxious, getting more and more righteous, getting more and more angry, getting more and more hurt? And it was like, because you're a human, Tommy. You're a human, and you're going through a breakup, and your heart is broken, and you're missing someone deeply. And that doesn't mean it's okay for me to treat people in a bad way. Like, that's not okay. And I'm glad I never asked her that question, and I'm glad I made myself wait. And I did build my distress tolerance, and I did build my skills to validate myself and give myself approval, and I did learn some lessons. I'm grateful for all of that. But I also am very gentle on myself. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. I don't think it's okay to shout at your kids. I don't want to keep making that fucking mistake. But it's definitely okay to be upset. It's definitely okay to not be at your best, for your thinking not to be at its best, for your spiritual practice not to be at its best. All of that's okay. Yeah. Anyway, shit. It's 29 minutes. I'm gonna keep this freestyle real short. Two chords, even shorter. In the middle of all night, in the middle of all night, in the middle of all night.